Imagine I walk into the investment firm where my son-in-law works and he suddenly laughs. "Security, please escort this gentleman out. He clearly wandered in from the wrong building." He calls his colleagues over to witness my humiliation. But then his managing partner appears, glances at my son-in-law, and says coldly, "Mr. Harrison, your $15 million portfolio transfer has been approved. And as for you, clear out your desk." My son-in-law's arrogance turned into career suicide. But that was only the beginning. Before we continue, please subscribe to Retribution and write in the comments what city you're watching from in Canada. The November rain hammered against my Subaru's windshield as I parked on the street, outside Thomas and Rebecca's house in Oakville. His Mercedes GLE sat in the driveway like a throne, still gleaming despite the weather. I'd driven from my apartment in Burlington, a modest one-bedroom place overlooking the lake. Simple, quiet, everything I needed. Through the front window I could see movement. My grandson Jacob, 8 years old, pressed his face against the glass, waving. His sister Emma, 10, appeared beside him. I waved back, noticing immediately that Jacob's jacket looked thin for November, and Emma's shoes seemed worn at the toes. Thomas opened the door before I reached it. He stood there in his tailored suit, home from the office, but still dressed like he was closing deals. "Robert, you're early. Traffic must have been light. It was fine." I stepped inside, shaking rain from my coat. "Let me take that." He reached for my jacket, but his eyes were already scanning my clothing. Jeans, a flannel shirt, work boots I'd owned for 15 years. Rebecca's still finishing dinner. "Why don't you wait in the living room?" The house smelled like roasted chicken and something sharp I couldn't identify. Expensive candles, probably. Everything in this house cost more than it needed to. The furniture was that deliberately modern style. Uncomfortable but impressive looking. Abstract art on the walls that I suspected Rebecca would never have chosen herself. Rebecca appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. My daughter, 34 years old, but looking older somehow, tired around the eyes. "Dad, you made it?" She hugged me quickly, then stepped back as Thomas positioned himself beside her, a united front. "Wouldn't miss it, sweetheart." We sat down to dinner. Thomas took the head of the table despite my presence. The children sat across from me, quiet and watchful in that way children get when they're used to walking on eggshells. Thomas poured himself wine without offering me any. "So, Robert, how's retirement treating you? Must be strange after all those years at the mill." I had owned and operated Harrison Timber Processing for 42 years. Built it from nothing in 1981. Sold it 18 months ago for $31 million. But Thomas preferred his version of my history. "It suits me. I couldn't do it. Man needs purpose." He cut his steak with precision. "Speaking of purpose, did you see the Mercedes outside? GLE 450. Just picked it up last week. Of course, with my position at Thornhill Capital, the firm expects a certain image." Rebecca smiled weakly into her wine glass. "That's quite an investment," I said carefully. "Investment. Exactly right. You understand business, Robert. Sometimes you need to spend money to make money. Not everyone gets that." He glanced at my flannel shirt. "Emma tried to ask me about my week." Thomas talked over her. "The GLE has a twin-turbo inline-six, 0 to 100 in 5.9 seconds. Though I don't suppose you'd appreciate that coming from a Subaru. It gets me where I need to go. Practical. That's the word." He said it like it was a diagnosis. The meal continued in this pattern. Every topic became a referendum on worth and status. When Jacob finally managed to ask about fishing, Thomas interrupted. "Robert doesn't have time for hobbies anymore." "Retirement's expensive, right, Robert? Fixed income? Have to watch every dollar." I watched Rebecca refill his glass before it emptied. An automatic gesture. She'd learned his rhythms. This wasn't the daughter who'd argued philosophy with me over breakfast, who'd questioned everything, who'd wanted to study environmental science. But then she'd met Thomas at university, and slowly, piece by piece, she'd become someone else. "Actually," I said, "I was thinking about Jacob's hockey. Rebecca mentioned the fees are substantial this year." Jacob looked up. "Hopeful. I'd be happy to help with registration, maybe new equipment if he needs it." Thomas set down his fork with deliberate care. "We provide for our children, Robert. We don't need handouts. It's not a handout. It's help from their grandfather. We don't need charity from someone living in a one-bedroom apartment on a pension. This conversation is over," His voice had gone cold, precise. Rebecca's fork paused halfway to her mouth, then continued. No defense, no intervention. After dinner, I asked to see the children's rooms. Emma's desk had a broken drawer handle held together with tape. Jacob's winter boots, tossed in the closet, had soles separating from the leather. But the master bedroom door stood half open. I glimpsed the California King with its pristine white linens, price tag still attached, dangling from the duvet corner. $200. The number was clearly visible in the hallway. Grandpa, Emma whispered. Do you like Dad's new car? It's very nice, sweetheart. Dad says we might get new winter coats next month. After his bonus comes in. She pulled at her thin jacket. These still fit, though. I found Thomas in the living room scrolling his phone. Thank you for dinner, Thomas. I'll call next week about visiting. Rebecca will let you know when we're free. We're busy people. He didn't look up. Not everyone has endless free time. Thomas, I'd like to spend more time with my grandchildren. We'll see. Good night, Robert. He turned away. Conversation finished. The drive back to Burlington took 30 minutes through rain-slipped streets. My apartment greeted me with familiar quiet. Small, yes, but organized. Everything in its place. I made tea and sat at my desk. My banking app loaded slowly. The balance appeared, $28,347,234.67. I'd sold Harrison Timber 18 months ago. The mill had been my life's work. 42 years of early mornings and calculated risks. The buyer was a forestry conglomerate. All cash deal, no one in my family knew the real number. Rebecca assumed I'd gotten maybe $1 million. Thomas thought less. I closed the laptop and looked at the framed photo on my wall. Harrison Timber's opening day in 1981. I was 32 years old, standing beside the first processing line I designed myself, wearing my father's watch, building something real. They thought that made me weak now. Thomas saw the modest apartment and assumed poverty. Rebecca had stopped asking about my finances years ago. I opened a fresh document. Titled it Family Observations, November 2024. Began typing. Children's clothing conditions. Luxury bedroom purchases. Thomas's spending patterns. The Mercedes timing. Tomorrow, I decided, I'd start watching more carefully. Not with anger, that would cloud judgment. With precision. The way I'd analyzed market trends and supplier contracts for 4 decades, Thomas had made a miscalculation. He'd assumed I was finished, powerless, irrelevant. I saved the document, created a password-protected folder, and went to bed. 3 days later, I sat at my laptop while morning light stretched across the screen. Coffee beside me had gone cold. I'd been researching private investigators in the Greater Toronto area since 6:01 a.m., reading reviews, checking licenses, cross-referencing complaint databases. I narrowed the list to 3 candidates. The first 2 felt wrong, too eager or too expensive. But the third, Dennis Kowalski, agreed to meet me that afternoon at a cafe in Mississauga. He arrived precisely on time. Mid-50s, gray hair, neat but not expensive clothes. He ordered black coffee and sat without preamble. You said this was family-related. I need information about my son-in-law. His behavior's changed. My daughter seems different. I need facts. What concerns you specifically? He's spending beyond his means, flaunting wealth while his children wear worn clothes. Either he's hiding income or hiding debt. Kowalski pulled out a notebook. 2 weeks. Full surveillance and background check. $4,500. I'll need his schedule, vehicle details, workplace. I'd prepared everything, wrote it out the night before. Thomas's work hours at Thornhill Capital Management. The Mercedes license plate. His typical routine. I slid the paper across the table. I'll pay half now, half on delivery. I want daily updates. Nothing in writing until the final report. Cash preferred for deposit. I handed him an envelope containing $2,500. We shook hands. He left first. The days crawled. Kowalski sent brief texts. Subject at workplace. Lunch meeting observed. Evening routine monitored. 10 days after hiring him, Kowalski called. We should meet. Same location. PM. The folder he slid across the table was thick. Photographs time-stamped, showing Thomas with a younger woman. Mid-20s, professionally dressed, 3 different restaurants, 2 hotels. His hand on her lower back, her fingers touching his arm. Her name's Melissa Patterson, junior analyst at his firm. Based on patterns, I'd estimate 6 months. I studied each photograph methodically. You're certain? Photographs don't lie. Restaurants, Canoe, Scaramouche, Bua. Hotels, Four Seasons twice, Shangri-La once. He uses a credit card she doesn't see. Different from family purchases. Kowalski produced a second set of documents. Background check revealed personal loans under his name only. Approximately $75,000 borrowed in the past year across 4 lenders. Credit cards maxed. Combined with your daughter's mortgage and vehicle loans, total family debt around $420,000. I absorbed this carefully. Does Rebecca know? Nothing in joint accounts reflects them. He's managing payments separately, which means hidden income. Or he's robbing Peter to pay Paul. My assessment, man's living beyond his means to support 2 lifestyles. The math doesn't work long-term. One missed payment and it collapses. I paid him the remaining $2,200. Drove home with the folder on my passenger seat, but I needed first-hand confirmation. The following Tuesday, I positioned myself at a restaurant bar Kowalski had documented. Arrived at 11:30, ordered coffee, took a seat with a mirror view of the dining room. Thomas arrived at 12:15 with Melissa, laughing, his hand on her lower back. Same possessive gesture he used with Rebecca. He pulled out her chair, ordered wine without checking prices. I photographed them through my phone's camera. One image captured his wedding ring, clearly visible, while his fingers intertwined with hers across the white tablecloth. The wine he ordered cost $120. I saw the server's presentation. This was a man drowning his family in debt for ego and an affair. I left before they noticed. That evening, I spread everything across my desk. Investigators' reports, my photographs, financial data I'd compiled. I built a timeline tracking the progression. Affair began 6 months ago. Debt accelerated 4 months ago. Mercedes purchased 1 month ago. The pattern was mathematical. I researched Thornhill Capital Management thoroughly, their client portfolio, their managing partners, their reputation for high-end discretion. And there, buried in their client testimonials, I found it. They specialized in portfolio management for high-net-worth individuals. Minimum investment, $10 million. What if a new client wanted to transfer a substantial portfolio? What if that client insisted on working directly with senior management for discretion? What if that client was me? I began drafting an email to Gregory Thornhill, founding partner. Professional language, substantial portfolio requiring discreet management, immediate liquidity available, request for private consultation with senior leadership. No mention of Thomas, no hint of connection. I wrote and rewrote the email for 2 hours. Around 9 p.m., I called Rebecca, just calling to see how you're doing. Her voice sounded distant. Fine, Dad, busy with the kids' schedules. Everything okay? You seem stressed. The defensiveness came immediately. Everything's fine. Thomas is working hard. We're fine. If you ever need anything, I have to go. Talk soon. She hung up. I sat in the darkness, only my laptop's glow illuminating the desk. The email to Gregory Thornhill was complete. Unsent. I'd wait until morning. Make it look like an early business inquiry from someone starting their day with purpose. On my desk, I arranged the materials, Kowalski's final report, my supplementary photographs, financial analysis, firm research. Beside them, I placed a handwritten list titled Objectives. 3 items. Expose Thomas professionally. Protect Rebecca and grandchildren financially. Ensure grandchildren's future, not revenge. I saved everything to an encrypted folder. Then created a physical backup in the locked drawer, where I kept my father's watch and my business sale documents. Tomorrow morning, I'd send the email. Timing mattered in business. Always had. My finger hovered over the trackpad, then moved to save draft. I'd spent 42 years learning patience. Another 12 hours wouldn't matter, but the foundation was laid. The research complete. The approach mapped. Thomas thought he knew who I was, retired, diminished, irrelevant. He was about to learn the difference between downsizing and strategic positioning. The cursor hovered over the contact form on Thornhill Capital's website. Wednesday morning, 9:17. I'd composed the message 3 times, refining each word. I typed the name into the form, Richard Morrison. The email address I'd created yesterday loaded automatically. Subject line, Portfolio Management Inquiry, Quindicim Transfer. The message referenced interest in discretionary wealth management, mentioned recent business sale proceeds, emphasized need for confidential handling. No mention of Thomas. No hint of family connection. I read it 3 times, checking for identifying details. Satisfied, I moved the cursor to send email. Whoosh, sent. First move made. The response came at 2:43 that afternoon. Gregory Thornhill himself, not a sales associate. Yes, they managed portfolios of this magnitude. Thornhill included his direct office line, suggested a private consultation away from typical client meetings for individuals who preferred discretion. I read between the lines easily. Thornhill recognized serious money, wanted to handle this personally, which meant bypassing the regular staff structure entirely, bypassing Thomas completely. Perfect. I waited 2 hours before responding. Couldn't seem too eager. My reply was brief. Preferred meeting with senior management directly, available this week. Cash position ready for immediate transfer. His response arrived within 30 minutes. Tomorrow afternoon, private office meeting. Bring identification for paperwork preparation. I spent the evening preparing, visited my bank, obtained a bank draft for $2 million made out to Thornhill Capital Management, purchased a leather portfolio, selected tomorrow's clothing, business casual, neat but not flashy. Thursday afternoon, I drove to the firm's office tower in downtown Toronto, parked 2 blocks away in a public garage. Didn't want my Subaru visible yet. The walk took 8 minutes. I entered through the main lobby. The receptionist expected me, smiled professionally, escorted me directly to Thornhill's office on the 23rd floor. The space overlooked the city through floor-to-ceiling glass. Thornhill rose to greet me. Firm handshake, offered coffee, gestured to leather chairs. Through the glass partition, I could see the main office floor, see Thomas at his desk talking on the phone, gesturing, confident in his element. Thornhill began the standard wealth management pitch. I interrupted politely. Mr. Thornhill, I've done my research. Your firm's been managing high net worth portfolios for 23 years. I'm prepared to make this simple for both of us. His eyebrows rose slightly. You've done your homework. I reached inside my jacket, removed the envelope, not fumbling. Deliberately prepared, slid it across his desk. I'm prepared to transfer $2 million today as an initial deposit, remaining $13 million within 30 days. But I have conditions. Thornhill opened the envelope, examined the bank draft. His expression shifted. This wasn't theoretical anymore. I'm listening. First, this arrangement stays between us until the full transfer is complete. No staff involvement until I'm ready. He hesitated. That's unusual. May I ask why? I value privacy. Too many wealth transfers become public immediately. Staff making assumptions. I make decisions quietly, execute publicly when I'm ready. Thornhill studied me, then nodded slowly. And the second condition? I want to finalize the full transfer personally during normal business hours, unannounced to your staff. I want the authentic firm experience. His expression suggested confusion, but he was looking at $15 million in new assets under management. Substantial fees. That can be arranged. We spent 40 minutes on paperwork, initialing forms, reviewing account structure. Timeline, 4 weeks for complete transfer. Mid-December finalization. As the meeting concluded, conversation turned casual. Thornhill mentioned pride in his team, their professionalism. I kept my voice carefully offhand. An excellent operation. My son-in-law works here, actually. Thomas Patterson. Thornhill's expression shifted. Recognition, then careful neutrality. Thomas. Yes, he's one of our investment advisors. Your family by marriage? We don't discuss business much. I prefer keeping family and finances separate. I'm sure you understand. I see. I stood, gathering my portfolio. It'll be interesting to see his reaction when I finalize the transfer. I haven't mentioned my interest in portfolio management to family. Should be quite a surprise. Thornhill's face suggested he was beginning to understand this wasn't a simple transaction. But the contract was signed, deposit made, money secured. He extended his hand. We'll call you 48 hours before finalization. I left through the main lobby, walked back to the parking garage at a measured pace. Only when I was seated alone in the Subaru did I allow the tension to release from my shoulders. 4 weeks until Thomas discovered his father-in-law wasn't a powerless retiree living on scraps. 4 weeks until the truth became visible. The phone rang at 10:12 Thursday morning. Gregory Thornhill's voice, professional and measured. "Mr. Morrison, your account transfer is complete. When would you like to finalize the paperwork?" I glanced at the clock. "I'll be there within the hour." "Excellent. Everything is prepared." After hanging up, I moved through my preparation with deliberate care. Removed my decent watch, replaced it with a cheap digital one. Selected my oldest jeans, a faded work jacket, scuffed boots. Studied myself in the mirror. Perfect image of a modest retiree. Exactly what Thomas expected. Exactly what would make the contrast devastating. The drive to downtown Toronto took 40 minutes. I pulled the Subaru into the visitor parking, no longer hiding, parking prominently near the entrance. Through the glass walls, I spotted Thomas near the conference room area, mid-conversation with clients, gesturing with practiced enthusiasm. I entered through the main entrance. The receptionist looked up with a professional smile, started to greet me. I walked past her toward the elevator bank. Thomas glanced over mid-sentence with his clients. Did a visible double-take. His expression shifted, confusion, then irritation, then something like embarrassment. I stepped into the elevator, pressed 23. When the doors opened, I walked directly to Thornhill's office. The glass-walled conference room beside it was visible to the entire floor. Thornhill stood. "Mr. Morrison, right on time. Please, let's finalize everything." He led me into the conference room. Glass walls visible to everyone. Thomas had followed, stood near the doorway, watching with growing confusion. Thornhill spread documents across the table. 15 million portfolio transfer, all documentation prepared. If you'll just review and sign here. Thomas's face drained of color. Thornhill continued, addressing me but speaking loudly enough for Thomas to hear. "Your account will be managed at our platinum tier. Direct access to senior partnership, quarterly reviews." I began signing documents one after another. Thomas stepped closer. "Robert, what are you doing here?" I looked up, expression neutral. "Finalizing my portfolio transfer." "Your what?" Thornhill intervened smoothly. "Mr. Morrison is transferring 15 million to our management. One of our most substantial new clients this quarter." Thomas's mouth opened, closed, opened. Again, other staff members were beginning to notice. Conversations quieting. Attention shifting. 15 million? Thomas's voice came out strangled. "You don't have 15 million. You live in a one-bedroom apartment. You drive a Subaru." "I do live in a one-bedroom apartment," I said calmly. "And I do drive a Subaru. Neither of those facts has anything to do with my net worth." Thornhill's expression suggested he was piecing together the family dynamics. "Mr. Patterson, perhaps we should discuss this privately." But Thomas wasn't listening. His voice rose. "This is impossible. You worked at a mill. You're on a pension." "I owned the mill," I corrected quietly. "Sold it 18 months ago for $31 million. The office had gone completely silent now. Every employee watching, Thomas spun toward Thornhill. "There must be some mistake. This is my father-in-law. He's one of our most valued clients," Thornhill finished coldly. "And you're currently disrupting a confidential account finalization." I continued signing documents. Hand steady. Thomas's face cycled through emotions, shock, disbelief, then something uglier. Calculation. "Robert, we should talk. Family should discuss these things. Maybe I could help manage." "No," I said simply. "But I'm family. I could advise." "You've given me plenty of advice, Thomas. About my apartment, my car, my fixed income. I don't require any additional guidance." Thornhill's jaw tightened. He was beginning to understand the fuller picture. Thomas tried a different approach, voice softer, almost pleading. "The children, Rebecca, we could use." I set down the pen, looked at him directly. "The children need winter coats. Rebecca needs a husband who doesn't spend $95,000 on a car, while his daughter's shoes have holes. Those would be more useful than your financial advice." Someone in the office coughed. Uncomfortable silence. Thomas's face flushed dark red. "You have no right." "I have every right," I said quietly. "I'm their grandfather, and I'm done watching you prioritize status over their basic needs." I turned to Thornhill. "Are we finished?" "Just one more signature. He slid the final document across. I signed, dated, pushed it back. Thornhill gathered the papers. Welcome to Thornhill Capital, Mr. Morrison. We'll schedule your first quarterly review for March. He stood, extended his hand. We shook. Then Thornhill turned to Thomas. My office, now. Thomas's face showed dawning horror. I gathered my portfolio, walked toward the elevator without looking back. Behind me, I heard Thornhill's voice, cold, professional. Mr. Patterson, your employment is terminated effective immediately. HR will contact you about your final paycheck. The elevator doors closed on Thomas's stricken face. From the parking garage, I sat in the Subaru for 3 full minutes, processing what I'd set in motion. Then I drove to Rebecca's house. The Mercedes still sat in the driveway, for now. Rebecca answered the door, confused. Dad, what are you doing here? It's Thursday afternoon. We need to talk, sweetheart. Can I come in? She stepped aside. I walked to the kitchen table, sat down. Thomas will be home soon. He got a call from work and sounded upset. I know, Rebecca. Sit down, please. She sat slowly, searching my face. I pulled out my phone, opened the photo gallery, turned it toward her. The first image showed Thomas and Melissa at canoe, his hand covering hers on the table. Rebecca stared. Her face went very still. I swiped. Another photo. Another restaurant. His arm around Melissa's shoulders. How long? Her voice was barely audible. About 6 months. That's Melissa Patterson. She works at his firm. I swiped again. Hotel entrance. Timestamp visible. Rebecca's hands trembled. She pulled the phone closer. Swiped through more images herself. I hired an investigator, I said quietly. I'm sorry, but I needed you to see the truth. You spied on my husband. I documented his behavior. There's a difference. She looked up, eyes wet. Why? Why would you do this? Because you're my daughter. Because those children deserve better. Because I watched you disappear piece by piece for 3 years. And I couldn't stay silent anymore. I pulled out the financial documents, laid them on the table. He's borrowed $75,000 without your knowledge. Personal loans, credit cards you've never seen. Your family's total debt is $420,000. He's been spending on her while telling you the children's coats could wait. Rebecca stared at the papers, numbers, dates, accounts she'd never known existed. This morning, I continued, I transferred $15 million to Thornhill Capital. Thomas found out when I finalized the paperwork in front of his entire office. He was fired. Her head snapped up. You what? I didn't get him fired. His behavior did that. I simply stopped pretending to be what he thought I was. You've been rich this whole time. I sold my business 18 months ago. $31 million. I've been living modestly by choice. Thomas made assumptions. I let him. Rebecca's face crumbled. You let us think you were struggling. You let him mock you. I needed to see who he really was, who you'd become with him. I needed you to see it too. She stood abruptly, paced the kitchen. This is too much. I can't process this. The front door opened. Thomas appeared carrying a cardboard box, tie loosened, face still flushed. He saw me, stopped. You, he said, voice shaking. You destroyed my career. No, I said calmly. You destroyed your career. I just provided the setting. He turned to Rebecca. Did he tell you? Did he tell you what he did? He showed me the photographs, she said quietly. Of you and Melissa. Thomas's face went pale. Those are out of context. 6 months, Rebecca said. While we couldn't afford coats for the children. While you bought a $95,000 car. I can explain. Get out, she said. Thomas stared at her. This is my house. It's our house, and I want you to leave now. He looked at me, back at Rebecca. You're choosing him over me? After what he did? I'm choosing truth over lies. I'm choosing my children over your ego. Leave. Thomas stood frozen. Then he grabbed his car keys from the counter, walked out without another word. The Mercedes roared to life in the driveway, reversed too fast, sped away down the street. Rebecca sank into a chair, put her face in her hands. I moved around the table, put my hand on her shoulder. I know this hurts. Sweetheart, but you and the children will be okay. Promise. She looked up, tears streaming. How will we be okay? Because you're stronger than you think. And because I'm here, not to control, not to fix everything, but to support you while you rebuild. She cried for a long time. I stayed beside her. Eventually, she wiped her eyes. The children will be home from school in an hour. What do you want to tell them? The truth, or a version they can understand. That Dad made some bad choices. That Grandpa's helping us figure things out. That sounds right, she looked at me. Really looked? You really have $31 million? I do. And you've been living in that tiny apartment by choice? After your mother died, I realized stuff doesn't matter much. People do, making an impact does. The money's a tool, not the point. I don't know how to feel about any of this. That's okay. You don't have to know right now. Just know that you're not alone. 6 weeks later, I sat in the family courtroom in Milton. Rebecca at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, Amanda Chen. Across the aisle, Thomas in a borrowed suit beside a court-appointed representative. He'd tried hiring counsel, couldn't afford it. The divorce proceedings had moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. Adultery, financial deception, hidden debt. Judge Morrison reviewed the documents. This is remarkably straightforward given the circumstances. Amanda stood. Your Honor, my client seeks primary custody, child support proportional to respondent's current income, and equitable division of assets excluding respondent's undisclosed debts. Thomas's representative stood. Your Honor, my client requests shared custody and disputes the asset division. Judge Morrison looked skeptical. On what grounds? My client believes external influence from the maternal grandfather has unfairly... Stop. Judge Morrison held up a hand. Unless you can demonstrate that Mr. Robert Harrison's financial support constitutes marital property, his involvement is irrelevant to these proceedings. She reviewed the documents again. Primary custody to petitioner Rebecca Patterson. Respondent granted standard visitation. Child support set at $1,800 monthly, based on respondent's current income. Marital home awarded to petitioner. Respondent's separate debts remain his sole responsibility. The gavel fell. Outside the courthouse, Rebecca stood in December sunlight. First time I'd seen her truly smile in months. It's over, she said. The legal part is the rest takes time. Thank you, Dad, for everything. You did this, sweetheart. You made the hard choice. I just provided information. She hugged me. Properly this time, not the quick, obligatory hugs from before. 3 months later, I stood in Rebecca's house helping Jacob with homework at the kitchen table. Emma sat nearby working on a science project. The house felt different now, lighter. Rebecca had rearranged furniture, painted walls, made it hers. She'd gotten a job at an environmental consulting firm, started building the career she'd set aside years ago. The children wore new winter coats, proper boots, not because I'd bought them, because Rebecca had, with her own money. Pride in every purchase. Grandpa, Jacob said, can you explain this math problem? Let's look at it together. We work through it, not doing it for him, guiding him to the answer himself. Rebecca came home at 5:30, smiled seeing us at the table. How was work? I asked. Good, really good. I'm working on a watershed restoration project using my degree finally. That's wonderful. After dinner, after the children went to play, Rebecca and I sat with tea. I've been thinking, she said, about everything that happened. Part of me wishes you'd told me sooner. About the money, about what you knew. I understand that. But another part understands why you didn't. I wouldn't have believed you. I'd have defended him, told you it was fine. Maybe. Dad, did you ever worry you went too far? Setting up that whole thing at his office? I considered the question carefully. Yes. Sometimes I wonder if I could have handled it differently. But Thomas needed to face consequences publicly. Private confrontation wouldn't have ended his behavior. It was humiliating for him. It was, and that troubles me. But Rebecca, he was humiliating you privately every day, making you feel small, making you question your worth. Sometimes breaking one person's pride is necessary to restore another person's dignity. She nodded slowly. I've been thinking about Mom. What she would have said about all this. Your mother would have been proud of you. For leaving. For rebuilding. She never tolerated disrespect. She would have hit him with a frying pan, probably. We both laughed. First real laugh I'd heard from her in years. The children seem happier, I observed. They are. It's strange. They miss Thomas, but they're lighter, less tense. They don't walk on eggshells anymore. That's good. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. The $15 million at Thornhill Capital, is that real or was it just for show? It's real. Properly invested, diversified portfolio, quarterly reviews. Why keep it there? Why not move it after everything? Because Gregory Thornhill runs a good firm, and because Thomas no longer works there to feel uncomfortable. Why let his mistakes dictate my financial decisions? She smiled. That's very practical of you. I'm a practical man. Always have been. Later, driving home to Burlington, I thought about the past 4 months. The investigation, the confrontation, the divorce, the rebuilding. Had I gone too far? Maybe. Could I have handled it with more grace? Probably. But Rebecca was free. The children were cared for. Thomas was facing the consequences of his choices. Sometimes justice looks like revenge. Sometimes it is revenge. The line between them depends on intention. My intention had been protection. The method had been exposure. I could live with that. At my apartment, I opened my laptop, checked my account balance, $28 million plus change, growing with investments. More money than I'd ever need. I opened a fresh document, typed education. Trust fund, Jacob and Emma Harrison. Started researching trust structures, tax implications, educational expense categories. The money wasn't the point, but it was a tool, a good one, and I was going to use it wisely. Before bed, my phone buzzed. Text from Rebecca. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for not giving up. I love you, Dad. I typed back. I love you too, sweetheart. Always. Set the phone down. Smiled in the darkness. Justice served. Family restored. Future secured. Task complete. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to Broken Retribution, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what city in Canada you're watching from. To listen to the next story, click the video on the left. Thank you for watching.